My sisters, we got this. You roll with me and I roll with you. Let's talk about. Let's talk about this. Talk about that. Talk about faith. Talk about facts. Let's talk about living. Talk about. Talk about. Talk about. We on a sister ship. We on a sister ship. Hello.
Hello, everybody. Happy Sister Ship Sunday. How's everybody doing today?
Doing fine. Great.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, as you well know, it's not just about the sistership today. We got a little bit of the brothership showing up in the room today.
Mm-hmm.
Surprise, surprise. I want to welcome everybody to the Sistership Network. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am your girl, Stefania Johnson, a.k.a. Stefania, your host, and we want to welcome everyone back to the Sistership Show, where we are here every Sunday, 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and every Thursday at 4 p.m. We also have our Brothership Show, which airs every first Sunday of the month on the Sistership Network YouTube page, channel, and at 2 p.m. as well, and Gynesis Radio every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So welcome, everyone. It is a hot one today, and I don't mean just outside. It's going to be hot in this room today as well. Just saying. But
Yeah.
just to go ahead.
Forget we have Darren.
That's right. We got Darren.
Uh-huh.
Darren. Oh, Darren, are you hot in that room that you're in right now?
Not yet.
So let's just make a quick announcement. I want to get to everyone on the panel today because everybody's got a really good feel for the topic we're going to be talking about today, and everybody's opinion matters, thought process, and just once again, as a disclaimer, the opinions and the thoughts and the topics and what we say is our own opinion, and we do not hold Gynesis Radio accountable for those. With that said, our announcement today, just quickly, we are having a huge event in Dansbury Park on Saturday, August 27th from 11 to 7, full of fun, full of unity. As a community and beyond, there'll be vendors, trick-or-treat performances, music, many more activities available for everyone. If you are a vendor, performer, community advocate, leader, etc., please reach out to Unity in the Community, 18302@gmail.com to get involved. So we're looking forward to it. It is a day of unity for everybody in the community. So looking forward to that. Let me get to my panel now. Because like I said, it's going to be hot in the room. And it's going to be hot where Mr. Darren DJ Jersey Johnson is too. Today we have, and very, very happy to have Lauren back here. Lauren Peterson, Executive Director of Women's Resources of Monroe County. We are so happy to have you back on this topic. Woo, Lord. Child, look, every time me and Lauren will get on some type of conversation, we just keep going.
Yes.
But I love it. I love it. I love diversity of thought, even, discussions that we have, and I love to have her on our shows. Christopher McCabe. I call him the super dad of 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls, a solar development contractor and member of the Monroe and Pike County's Community Services Administration Board, among many other advisory positions and Planning Commission. Welcome, Chris.
Welcome. Thank you.
Very happy to have you on.
Always glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. And we've got Darren Johnson, aka DJ Jersey. He's our guest from the Brothership Show. Community advocate, DJ on Gynesis Radio, professional in the CPG corporate arena for over 30 years, and passionate about many various topics, social, economic, and political, as you will hear today on the Sistership Network. And I can't say nothing else without my girl, my right hand right here today, my co-host, Tiffany Kofer, a.k.a. Bling.
She forced me today.
We forced her today. She is the CEO of the Sistership Network and the co-host, and we have our partner here, TP, in the house from Gynesis Radio. So thank you, everyone, for being here today, and thank the audience for being here with us today. We are going to get into the topic. We do want to say, if you have any questions or comments, quick questions or comments, We will be taking them about 2:45-ish Eastern Standard Time, 888-304-4401. So let's talk about this. Today's topic is called Forward Movement is a Rollback. And I mean that. Row and beyond. There's a couple things that we want to talk about. And, yes, we want to get into the topic of Roe. However, we want to take a step back and also discuss our current affairs, our current climate. That is not so current with the mass shooting in Buffalo. We cannot go a day without thinking about what these individuals, how they were impacted, their families, in a predominantly Black neighborhood that killed and injured a total of 13 people. 10 were killed, again, all Black. It's a serious conversation we need to have. A lot of people don't want to talk. They're very quiet. Sometimes quiet is considered complacent. Our prayers are with all that were impacted. And as we are in the month of mental health awareness, we can't imagine the impact of this on the mental health in communities of color and what people of color have to deal with every day with the threat of warfare on their minds and bodies. As we get into this conversation, once again, we'll be taking calls. So please make sure you call in to 888-304-4401. So let's talk about Buffalo for a moment. A young man, we'll call him an adult because he is, gets suited up like he's going into a war zone with a Bushmaster semi-automatic rifle that he illegally modified to increase its capacity for mass casualties effectiveness. He had a 180-page manifesto that gave way to this great replacement theory. Let's talk about Buffalo. And to know, this is not just happening in Buffalo. This not just happened in Buffalo. This is not that just something that just happened recently. This has been going on for many, many years in churches, synagogues, wherever. We cannot be safe in our own skin, and that we need to talk about that. So with that said, let's talk about Buffalo for a moment. Chris, you want to kind of give us your perspective on what?
So, coming from a white, middle-class, suburban New Jersey background, I grew up with the great they, them, and the what if they come over the hill? What if they are suddenly coming to our stores? What if they are? And, I didn't know who or what the they was, but I knew that they existed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beginnings of, in my, developmental years, my teenage years, of just trying to understand what it was that we were so fearful of. Now we flash forward to the latest Facebook memes or Instagram memes of, well, if you don't want to give minorities equal rights, what is it that you're afraid of?
Mm.
And I've got to look back on my youth. I've got to look back on what I was growing up around and with, and the social climate of the they, them. And that's what this, as a young kid, very developmentally, pliant, was being inundated with. They are out to take over. They are out to integrate into your society. They are looking, and it doesn't just touch on the minority community existing in the United States. It's the immigrants coming into our communities. It's a horror story in manufacturing of tales that probably don't exist in any way, shape, or form, but it's easy enough for leaders to make some statements, a wry joke, a comment, and then step back and don't understand why these kids are suddenly acting up and writing these manifestos, and he must be mentally ill. And he's not mentally ill.
Mentally ill. Mm-hmm.
He's community ill. And it's been pounded into him since he was a child. And education started somewhere. Exactly.
Started at home.
And the great CRT, oh my God, we can't educate these kids about their history because God forbid they understand grandma and grandpa were the ones whipping the black kids off of the Woolworths counters.
That CRT. which does not exist in school systems.
Nope.
It just
Doesn't.
it's and you know, and this is where I think discussions that are had, things that you're seeing on social media, stuff that's being pounded in. I'll get into, you know, I hate getting into politics, but there is a political climate that's driving this bad messaging as well. But you know, again, let's be clear, CRT is not what is being taught in school systems. And when we have an individual who was continuously pounded, how they are going to take over and replace us, this is where this mentality, you know, it starts getting born. And it's been here. Let's be clear. It's been here for ages. It's just now starting over the last couple of years to be more pervasive. Not only more pervasive, but people are accepting it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we need to be talking about this, because it's not acceptable. And you know, this is why silence is considered complacency, because we are allowing people to speak up about hating individuals without talking about loving people and talking about how we get rid of this mindset that's out there.
You know, when you get in the car after Thanksgiving and everybody's in the car and you're driving home, and, you know, your partner turns to me and says, Uncle Randy's joke really made me uncomfortable. Well, you know what? Screw you. You should have said that to Uncle Randy at Thanksgiving dinner, because you're not saying anything to that person. I'm sorry, Uncle Randy. You're not saying that to that person directly. Doesn't confront the true issue. And while that's not a complacency in silence, it's even worse.
Yeah.
It's given that person power. Because you may have even smiled or smirked. And the presumption is you agree with the ideology.
Yes. Yes.
Well, it's the same thing that kind of went with back in not too long ago, where you're talking about locker room talk.
Oh, yeah.
The disparities where men would disparage women using very derogatory terms. They were like, oh, it's just locker room. No,
it's not acceptable.
It's not acceptable, because when you're able to say these things to anybody, or even if you're saying them in your own head, you're making it real and you're giving it power. And I like what you said about the they and the them, and they're going to come and take over in ways that systematic oppression has worked for decades upon decades upon decades to consistently oppress people of color. The people of color that are now rising up and saying, this is not okay anymore. And it was never okay, but all these rights, by giving someone else systematic rights, by giving them equality and equitability, it's not pie. Like, you're just by giving them rights, you're not going to have less pie for you.
Right.
You're just making more pie.
Yeah.
Like, people just need to understand that there's nothing being taken away from you and your fundamental sense of being by giving this section of the population the ability to govern their own bodies, to govern their own choices, to govern their own families, to have the same opportunities as everybody else of the white cisgendered population that has the power.
You know, sitting here in this room specifically, I'm the only non-amendment in our Constitution. Everybody in this room, including the man behind the board, is some sort of an amendment to our Constitution.
Yes.
I'm the only. It was written for me.
Yes. Yes.
By me.
Yes.
And it's great to have that perspective, because you are a person who has innate privilege. And we have to use our privileges as white persons
Absolutely.
to improve upon the society, to speak out, because it's not going to happen if we're putting all of the onus on the persons of color to make this right. We have to say something. We have to speak up. And that was really great to bring up, is that we have that innate privilege and we need to recognize it, but then use it.
Use it. Yep.
It has to be. It is a tool. It is a weapon. And the weapon is to beat back the horrible brush fire that is still raging. You know, my sisters and brothers all marched back in the 60s, and they fixed it. No, they didn't.
They didn't.
It's still a horror show out here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolute horror show. My son had to correct me the other day. He's like, you can't say that. I was saying gypsies. He's like, you can't call them gypsies anymore. He's like, unless you're talking about, and he went to a specific Romanov, and he broke it all out for me. He's like, but you can't call those people gypsies.
Mhm.
And he's right. He's absolutely right. It's every moment for me is an education process because I've never lived it. And I'm pointing around the room because you're female, you're black female, you're a single mom, you're this, I've never gone through it.
What's up? Come on here.
Darren, your thoughts on this whole Buffalo? I know you have
guess-
perspective.
Well, I think, well, thank you.
Oh,
Before I
didn't
give
say that.
my perspective, I think that this forum is excellent because we're actually seeking solutions. I think the frustration that I've seen and observed since my existence, trying to be a part of the solution is that we don't have enough forums to have this. There was once a point where the word diversity came into our vernacular in society and it meant different things to different people. So diversity went from a concept that, in my humble opinion, got demonized. So I want to just thank the group for everyone participating because we're the folks in terms of creating a solution. Right now, we've got a lot of different pieces of information and disinformation, but I just wanted to throw that out there. With respect to Buffalo, I think Buffalo is a microcosm of what's happening in the history of America. I'm a fact and figures guy. I'm probably an egghead, but let me just step back for a second because I used to live in the Rochester area for 10 years. And I used to party a lot in Buffalo. And it was interesting because when I went to Buffalo, I was on that strip, Jefferson Avenue, where that horrible event occurred. And I had noticed, just in my travels in large urban areas, there's a common denominator. Most of our cities are segregated. Did you know that Buffalo's the 7th most segregated state in America? Now, let me just give you a little history about Buffalo. The Kensington Expressway was actually built to bisect the city. And in a lot of urban areas, when highways are brought into these urban areas, they're to facilitate white flight. And basically, in most cases, the end result is disfranchising of people. So this Kensington Expressway occurred, the construction of it began in the 50s and ended in the 60s. That Tops was the only grocery store that came into being in 2003. So for over 50 years, if you wanted to get groceries in that community, you had to go more than 3 to 5 miles to the next available place. So I think, we need to put that in perspective because we're looking at a major event that has our attention. And we have to look at some of these reasons. This shooter, and I think the gentleman brought it right. There was nothing mental with him. We've begun to establish roles. When, some people commit a crime with a gun or firearm, they're criminal. When others do it, they're mental. The truth of the matter is that what we need to start looking at, in my humble opinion, are the origins of what are making the most privileged people in the country feel aggrieved. Now, we can dissect that and we can dig into it. Part of it is disinformation. COVID did a lot of things to us. When I say us, all of us as humans, in a negative fashion. We're not meant to be cooped up. But those that were responsible and stayed in had to find things to stay engaged socially or to thrive. Well, not everyone does that because if left to your own devices, you go on that dark web and you begin to feed in to some of the garbage and some of the nonsense that's out there. You're more apt to buy into it. Now, with the shooter, there are a few things that we need to just be very clear because I think he actually is getting some complicity with media. He was not a kid. He was an adult. He was 18. He got one of those firearms from his parents. We've not heard much about the parents. I'm sorry. I grew up in a pretty tight household. My folks would know what I was doing at all times. They understood my moods, my attitudes. So I think we need to understand that. We need to start looking at, because we've been told by authorities the FBI, that domestic terrorism is the #1 threat to our national security. And with
Yep.
all of these increasing attacks, not just against Black people, but all ethnicities, Asian,
Right.
Jewish, and so on and so forth, we need to seriously look at homeland security mechanisms that hold some of these people accountable. Now, I think you brought it up, Stefania, this great replacement theory. The great replacement theory is a trope that thrives in these dark areas of the internet where white nationalists thrive. People in Fox like Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham, sadly, have made it normalized. So I just want to be clear before I stop, and I think that we all need to just understand this. Everybody's not bad in this country. We all have a common denominator for peace, a lot of us. But there are enough of us, if we're not careful and don't take action, that can fundamentally dismantle this democracy.
And I'm really glad that you brought up that mental health piece, because being Mental Health Awareness Month, and Stefania and I have talked this about before, is people are very quick when there is a situation like this to throw out that term. Oh, they're mentally ill. Oh, they're disturbed. Oh, they're crazy. Imagine for us that wonderful Venn diagram that we all saw in school, right? We got the circle, and there's that small part of that overlap. We got a circle of people who hurt people. And then we got a circle of people who have mental health problems. It's a very, very small overlap that those two things coincide. There is a lot of people who have mental health issues and health concerns that don't hurt anybody.
Right.
So I think it's actually doing a disservice to the victims, to the people that they hurt, to almost normalize it. Say, oh, but they're mentally ill. But no, they're not. There's plenty of people who are mentally ill. It's not a DSM-5 diagnosis to be hateful. It's not a DSM-5 diagnosis to be racist. Let's just call it what it is. Call an egg an egg.
Right.
And this was a young man who was racially indemnified to go and kill people of color. And that's exactly what happened. And I don't think we can cut them slack anymore.
No.
And I think it's really important for us to have these discussions, and we have to have these discussions with diverse populations to try to come up with what the solution is, because not one person can come up with the solution.
I agree. I think that's the challenge. And this is why I think it's so frustrating, I think, for everybody who sees this, and we continue to see this, and we continue to see this, and we continue to see this. We have marches, we have discussions, but it feels like nothing is getting done to address
because
it.
you've not made the white population comfortable.
Not yet.
That's
Not yet.
just it. That's the biggest problem. And the problem is if you do make the white population uncomfortable, they strike out. We strike out. And we've got that all-consuming Constitution behind us. Like I said at the beginning here, it was written for me, by me. And you don't matter because I can wield it. Look at what's going on with our Supreme Courts, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Later.
No, we definitely.
But, some shuffling, and then suddenly now we've got a 20-year vetted law of the land that's now being discussed. We're wearing shirts.
Yep.
And where that falls back into the Buffalo shooting is it's that somebody got uncomfortable, so gun laws became Second Amendment rights, and this kid could go get his gun. And correct me if I'm wrong, you said you used to party up in that area. It is very much a family community up in that specific area of Buffalo. That man bought a gun, drove a few hours because he knew there were going to be nobody would have weapons to battle him.
Right. And
So-
I just jump in really quick.
Darren,
Darren, 1 second. Sorry.
1 second. I'm actually trying to get in the comments from people who are watching. I see some comments, but I can't see it quite. I see there's one up on the screen. Can you see it,
Darren?
Yeah, it says Ms. Romy wrote, Buffalo, very sad. Thought during the civil rights era in the 1960s that there would be more intelligent people living the dreams of MLK. Being silent is the same as saying it is all right, just as locker room talk is the mindset of the trafficker.
Right.
Very well said.
Right. I want to just quickly, and Darren, I will get to you because I know you have a comment. Tiff, your children saw the video. I saw the video. I was I mean, already knowing about it is already enough. But just seeing exactly how he acted, how the act took place, and how he stopped when he saw. This is why this mental illness thing, like you can throw that out there as many. It doesn't fly for me. You cannot go into a location if you have mental illness and you're trying to kill people, whatever. You don't stop at the white guy who laid on the floor and said, "Hey, dude," and he was like, "Oops, sorry," and went. And you see what I'm saying? Like, it does not jive for me. This is why we have to stop continuously saying that this is mental illness that is allowing people or giving people the right to do what they're doing. And we got to stop that. To your point, it's a very small population.
It is. And I think we'd be having a very different conversation right now. It'd be a very different outcome if we flipped the script and this individual was Black.
Right. Right. Oh, yes.
There would be a lot more different adjectives being thrown around.
Absolutely.
I think I don't remember if it was you or Daryl who brought it up. Criminal versus mentally ill.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I mean, we've seen it over and over and over on the media where the same situation with the same kinds of individuals, the only difference is their color.
Correct.
And probably, I don't know, I can't say much for, I've never been to that area of Buffalo, but it's highly probable that kid might not have walked out of there in handcuffs, but in a body bag.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And history would be drawn up and what they did when they were 10 years old or 15 years old or 16 years old or what have you. You would have a whole history book of whatever was going on in their life where we don't have that today with this incident. Darren, your comments.
My comments have changed because of the organic nature of the discussion. But I'll say this because I think, this is a huge issue. But I think, because we have this forum, my counsel to listeners and people that will hear this is that we have to be our brother's keeper. Yeah. We have to actually begin to talk. The biggest thing that segregates us is our inability to build friendships. If you think about it, at work, that's arguably by design the biggest place you're going to meet people of diverse backgrounds. But when we actually segment that and look at who we interact with, what we're finding is we don't interact with each other. And that allows this disinformation and stereotypes and innuendo and nonsense to thrive. I'll just, I follow politics a lot. And I'll tell you something that actually didn't work that got discounted. In political history, there's always been a way to make a wedge issue. And when we looked at 2020, that wedge issue was, I can remember the tropes very vividly. The caravans are coming and they're going to move in your suburbs. Now, the reason that backfired when we look at it from a forensic perspective is that people that lived in the suburbs knew a few people that were Latino or Black. So the actual narrative didn't match. My personal experience is that my friends that live in the suburbs keep their lawns a little tighter, keep their home a little upfront because for two reasons. One, they've made it, and two, they know that they've got to be better. And right, wrong, and different, that's a mentality that typically is what you see. So when people were hearing something from their political leaders, like they're going to come into your neighborhoods, it didn't jive. So I'm throwing that out there as an observation politically to say that's how we get to the bottom of this. We've got to interact more. We don't have to be friends, but we have to seek to understand, because that's when you're at a dinner table or a social event or any type of forum, when you hear someone say something that's not representative of any group, you can say, hey, stop. I think that you're out of order. And we fundamentally shut down when there's a conversation that we don't think we like, or more importantly, we don't understand.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the Ostrich Syndrome.
Yeah.
Put your head in the sand. It doesn't happen here. It's not going to affect me. I got to go away. But also, people need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's normal. It's rational. It's human for us to fear what we don't understand. However, you can't. You have to stop yourself from going that one step further with an acting aggressively in that fear. Whereas instead of doing that, seek to understand. Which I love that he brought that up. We have to humanize the human again. That this concept of otherness. we're all humans.
Mhm.
But we all have to understand is like, and I hate people say, oh, I don't see color. No, that completely that drives me up the wall when I hear cis white gender people say that, because that completely negates the difficulties, the unique experiences of that
Mhm.
person of color's
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
I, as a cisgendered white woman, will never fully understand the life that you
Yeah.
have gone through.
Yeah.
And I respect that, and I accept that, and I want to learn.
Yeah.
We have to be open to that.
No, I
And-
agree.
And be willing to listen.
Yes.
So I think for me, I've become kind of numb to it. You know,
Mhm. And that's
when
scary.
this situation happened
Yeah.
with Buffalo, I was like, oh, okay, here we go again.
That's a self-preservation
You know?
instinct.
So
Mhm.
I did not look at the video. I did not see it. I didn't pay attention to the news. Steph knows I don't really watch the TV at all. I can't. It gives me anxiety. But my daughter came to me and she said, Ma, did you see the man? He walked up and shot all the black people and apologized to the white.
Mm.
And I sat and I thought for a minute and I said, oh man, maybe I don't want to see it,
Yeah.
but I need to look at this now to see what she was looking at.
Yeah.
And I saw it. And then we had a conversation where I told him, this is why I always tell you, be aware of your surroundings
Yeah.
and where you are at all times, because people see color. They can say all the time they don't see the
Mhm.
color. However, the people who are around us who don't like black people might take it as an opportunity to traffic you somewhere because you are black. So I always tell them, be aware of the surroundings and the people who you associate with, so that you know what's happening at all times.
Mhm.
So it just brought back to, I said, this is why I always tell you all, make sure when you're in a crowd, you know who's around you.
Yeah.
Because it's easy for them to take you.
Very true.
And that's a self-preservation. It's sad, and this is what is so sad about it, is the fact that, and I said it earlier, there is a warfare going on, and we sit here and we're, you're having to, your children are having to protect themselves, or you have to have that conversation. We don't have that conversation.
Because let's be real, we feel the transition of everything that's going on,
Yeah.
right? And we need to be, because we have the event unity in the community,
Yeah.
and we need to be all
Right.
conscious of each other.
Right.
But we can sit and we talk about it all the time. We can sit till we're blue in the face and talk the same thing. We went through the riots, and it got really quiet.
Yep.
So I always say, well, I understand that this is happening, but until we also fix us internally, will we trust each other? What are we going to do? Because we talk about it, but what's next?
Yeah.
We talk about it on the sistership. We talk about it on the news. We watch TV. Everybody says, let's rally. Let's do. What's next?
Vote.
Yes.
I think-
Yes.
Vote.
Yes.
How was
Well,
the voting? This
It was
horror.
horror.
I thought it was.
Primaries
I said
were
it
a
was.
horror show. I
Yeah.
worked the polls,
Mhm.
and I think we
And there wasn't a great turnout.
hit
No.
98 people, 97,
Wow.
98 people
Mhm.
out of a potential 700-800.
I think that's what makes you numb, because you can say it till you're blue in the face, but until we actually keep going and all
Yeah.
combine to do the same thing,
Yeah.
we throwing the basketball up against the wall, saying the same thing.
Well, being vocal by protesting is good, but it's not
Enough.
what's
What'd I say?
needed.
It's not
It's
enough.
not what's needed
That's
at
what I
all.
said.
Okay,
Mhm.
being vocal to, and I go back to the Uncle Randy joke, shutting him down
Mhm.
on that one-to-one level.
Yeah.
That's an education
Mhm.
process, because the 4 people who witnessed you do that, they'll do something the next time.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's where we get. If you go to my TikToks, you'll see all the first
I
amendment
see your
audits.
TikToks.
Yep,
Mhm.
I'm just on these. It's just insane how the algorithms picked up on this.
Mhm.
But I watch these people as they record the police who make the stops, and the police get angry.
Mhm.
Okay, but you know what? Suddenly there's 8 other people standing on the sidewalk saying, "No, you shouldn't be doing that to them. Why are you doing?" And then suddenly we've had a change of society, a change of community.
Yeah.
Okay, we have that power individually to change one other person,
Mhm.
and then just exponentially it just grows from there.
Mhm.
It's a ripple in a pond. Yeah.
Now still show up at the different protests,
Right.
go march,
Right.
vote,
Mhm.
okay, but be active in that voting. Okay,
Yes.
I'm voting Democrat because that's what I always vote. I'm
No.
voting Republican because that's what I always
No,
vote.
you
I
have
vote-
to
no,
know
vote
what
the
you're voting.
person
Right.
and the problem on the ticket.
Yes.
Mhm.
Very
Yes.
much.
That's I think the missing link a lot of times is when you hear about people voting, and we talk about legislature and all these rights and things and amendments and what have you. I think people miss it altogether when they say, I'm just gonna vote, the way I've
Absolutely.
always voted. You got to
Absolutely.
understand the issue you're voting for or against.
And look at their history. If they're a standing politician, if they're a standing legislator, look at what they voted for in the past.
Yes.
I'm on the local chapter of the League of Women Voters.
Mm.
My family always has been in my family. Like my grandmother, my mother, we always have been. We've always been active. And they are a completely 100% nonpartisan voting group. So they encourage people to get out to vote, to educate themselves about the vote. They don't care how you vote or what you vote for, as long as you do it.
Yep.
If you're looking for information, I would start with the League of Women Voters. But you're right. Educate yourself about them, because just voting straight ticket, you are consistently endorsing the problem.
Yeah.
You have to educate yourself about the people you are voting for and talk to them.
Yeah.
Especially your local legislators.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a presidential campaign. I mean, those are big and people are really important about it, but talk
It's
to
the
the people
local
running
level.
locally. Say, hey,
Yeah.
how do you stand on this issue? What
Yep.
do you hope to achieve? What is your goal going into this office? So I really encourage people to really understand what they're voting for, who they're voting for. But to your point, Tiffany, that you brought up, is that there's this huge subset of people that say, my vote doesn't matter, I'm just not going to do it. And then if you look at that group of people, if they all voted the way that they wanted to, it could
It might
change
just change
so
one
many
thing.
things.
So much.
Right.
So
So
much.
Can I-
things.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
make a point really
Yep.
quick? And as far as just the political piece, here's the bottom line, in my humble opinion. Right now, it's not about politics. When I say that, and just hear me out, we've gone beyond that. The apathy of voters across racial lines has gotten us into this place. While we did have the most voter turnout in 2020, there were still 110 million eligible voters that didn't go to those polls. And that incenses me when I hear even some of my friends, I've gotten into knock them out, drag them out debates because I take it serious. Now, I'll try to be succinct. It's not about politics anymore because the powers that be haven't brought the table stakes issue. It's about right and wrong, folks. It's about what's morally right. If people are walking around propagating a lie as a means, as a political end, you have to repudiate that.
Yes.
You have to. Thank you.
No, good, fair point.
Agreed.
So let's talk about this because we've got Roe coming
We've
up,
got
right?
Roe.
We've got Roe, and
Now,
I mean, it's been probably being fought for many years. It came into play Supreme Court in 1973. It's on the table now. Supreme Court apparently is going to vote to dismantle it. States are already making decisions. Lawmakers are already making decisions in their states.
there's two right now in the Pennsylvania legislature, a House bill and a Senate bill that you can look up and see what they're actually writing about, but it would criminalize abortion. It's happening right now. So if there's federal regulations that get dismantled, the state, if it goes back to the states are already prepped and ready to go with voting to restrict, if not outright ban.
This is so here we are. We're not going back. We say that. We want this. We're trying to manifest this, right? But here we are. We're in a position where this could potentially 99%, I would say, that would come into play. And we are going to have states making those decisions and putting bills in place to pass. There's all this argument about, rights of women and our bodies and our choice and what have you. I'm just going to say this. Personally, from a personal perspective, I am pro-life, but I also know that I do not have the right to tell another woman what to do with their body. So I consider myself pro-choice from that perspective because it is the choice of that individual with their doctor.
Yes.
You know, I know Darren mentioned earlier about, you know, church and state. Here we are.
Yep.
You know, there's so much involved in this whole piece, and it's more than Roe, and we'll get into that as well. It's beyond Roe.
Mm-hmm.
But let me open it up for discussion here. Lauren, I know you have something, you have a lot to
I
say
have so much to say.
in this topic.
Well, I think to your point, I'm the same.
Yeah.
All right. Me personally, in my personal life, I am pro-life. However, that does not enable me to then look at you and say, you got to be pro-life too.
Mm-hmm.
No abortions. That's just not how this rolls. Right. It's bodily autonomy. And the Roe v. Wade decision, while it revolved around an abortion case, it was actually about the right to privacy. About your own medical decisions. So it is an extremely slippery slope that we need to be very, very careful about. I was showing you this, I'm not sure if it's a quote or just a statement. I just thought it was really good. But it goes to kind of what you and I are kind of in right now, is as insane as this may sound, you can be passionately pro-choice and not be pro-abortion. You can be outraged at seeing toddlers ripped from their parents and put in cages and not be for open borders. You can demand common sense for gun laws and not be against the Second Amendment. And right now we are experiencing an epidemic of myopic partisan ignorance, and we as a civilization and a country are suffering because of it. It's not so black and white as all that. Like you can we're not, I don't think I know of any pro-choicers who say, yeah, kill the babies.
Yeah,
no, that's just
exactly.
not how that rolls.
Exactly.
That's not how that rolls. We are saying pro-choice.
Right.
We are pro a person's right to choose what they do and do not do with their own bodies.
Correct.
Okay, so here's your slippery slope. If this goes down and it's about privacy, it's about bodily autonomy, what happens with the next pandemic and vaccine mandates? Oh, that my body, my choice, it's not going to fly anymore.
Yep.
It's not going to fly anymore. And people need to be very, very aware of that.
What happens in the state? Use Kentucky as a good example of a woman traveling out of state on her way back to college in New York, as she gets stopped at the border because now there's no federal guidelines protecting her body, and the state police stop her. And why are you exiting the state?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's to stop them? What's the next step in this insanity of them, the police saying, well, now this female officer is going to take you to the bathroom. You need to go pee on a stick and prove to us that you're not on your way to go get an abortion.
Right.
Yep.
Because in our state, it's protected. This child's protected, and we're going to keep you here.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and some of the laws are doing that.
And it's just that
to set up that it will
insanity.
criminalize going out of state to get one.
And I hope that speaks to what you were going to continue with. I just
Yes.
wanted to make sure that the reality is it's not going to stop there.
No.
Period.
It's not going to stop there. And
Really quickly, I'm
Sure.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I want to keep the audience engaged.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm seeing post up information here, so I'm going to read it out. You know, and we have actually substance on here, and she says there's a formula shortage, but they want to ban abortion.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Oh my God.
And she says,
Yep, good point.
if I was raped and gotten pregnant,
Yep.
I would not look at that baby as, I don't have my glasses on, y'all, so
I know exactly where she's
look
going.
at that baby as a blessing from God. I would despise it. I would think we should be pro-concept. What is that? Because I can't see. I'm sorry, you.
Pro-contraceptive,
Yes.
pro-preventative reproduction. Agreed. And you know what?
Mhm.
It's interesting that she brought that up. And I laughed too when I said about the whole before. I mean, not that it's a funny situation, just clear, not a funny situation. I just find it ironic that we are trying to ban abortion, but yet we don't have formula to feed the babies.
Okay, so you want to ban abortions. They say, oh, we want to protect the babies. We want to, this
Right.
is unborn life. Okay, give us free health care.
Yes.
Give us
Yes.
free maternity
Yes.
care. Give us free
Yes.
formula. Give us free
Yes.
lactation consultants. Give us free child care.
Yes.
Give us free
Yes.
parental leave for up to a year,
Right.
like
Because
other
you need it
developed
here.
countries have gotten. If this was about babies being born,
Right.
we would not have a gun problem.
Okay.
That's right.
If we go back to Sandy Hook,
Mhm.
once the government said after Sandy Hook that guns are more important than children, we have given up on the notion
Mhm.
that it is about keeping children safe.
Yep. Yep.
This is about control. This is about oppression. This is about controlling women and birthing persons' bodies. I say birthing persons because those who are trans women or gender nonconforming do not even consider themselves female or woman. We want to say birthing persons, people who have the ability to give birth. Yes.
We also want to allow for calling.
I was
as
just
well.
gonna-
Yeah, so we're on the same page.
Go
So
ahead.
The number is 888-304-4401. We'd like to hear from you as well. It's just not about what we think, but we'd like to hear what everyone else is saying too as
Right.
well. So you can call and do your
Right.
show.
There's this thought process that let them have the baby and adopt.
I love
Give
that
up
one.
for adoption.
I love that one.
Why?
Yeah, I
Why
love that
would
one.
you do that?
Oh no! Okay, so
And
I
here
was
we
that
are.
kid. I was that kid
Here we are.
who would go to the pro-life marches. I was
Yep.
I was that kid,
Mhm.
and I was very proud of that. But then
Mhm.
I became woke. Yay! And the best turnaround to that statement, where you see someone adopt, don't abort. All right, where's your adopted child? Where are they? How many have you adopted?
Mhm.
The answer, surprisingly, unsurprisingly, mostly zero.
Mhm.
Put money where your mouth is. Don't tell someone to do something you're not going to be doing yourself. There's plenty of children already in the foster care system.
Thank you.
But
Thousands.
there are people there. Those are the children who are the undesirables.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
people of color. They have disabilities. They have mental health issues. They're older. We're not talking about babies. We're just talking about white babies.
But that
Right.
also goes into mental health
Yeah.
because the state of the woman that's giving birth to this baby that's now being adopted,
Mhm.
your mental health, you have years, 21 years of, oh, is this kid okay?
Yes.
So there's a lot to it. You can't speak.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mental health. We talked about postpartum
Yes.
depression
Mhm.
that some women go through. But I think my biggest issue, and I know some states are trying to address this because people have vocalized the concern around eliminating abortion or making it illegal, is rape, incest,
Mhm.
financial, emotional, whatever state of mind or whatever have you, not being able to care for a child,
Risk of the health of the mother.
risk of health of the mother, ectopic pregnancies, things of that nature. It just, what kills me is that, again, these are medical things that we need to be addressing as women with our, again, someone who can birth a child with their doctors.
Yes.
And we have, I'm just going to say it, white men
Who will never get pregnant.
who will
Unless
never get
something
pregnant.
Very drastic happens.
And they're saying, no, you are not going to get an abortion because that's what we feel.
And I like that you brought up the talk about in terms of rape, incest, abuse. And as Women's Resources Executive Director, of course, that's the perspective a lot of the times that it comes from. However, if you limit it even just to that, you are now forcing a victim of abuse, of violence.
Yep.
You are forcing them to disclose.
Yep.
To get an abortion.
Yes.
Like, okay,
Yes.
that's a traumatic thing that's already happened to you.
Mhm.
And now you're having to disclose this in
Mhm.
order to get something that should be available to anybody. So I
Good
think
point.
it's a starting point, and it can't be disavowed.
Yeah.
But it can't be limited to that.
Right.
This is between a person and their doctor.
Mhm.
And if unless a great number of the people sitting in Congress right now have a lot of MDs, which I highly doubt, then no uterus, no opinion.
Well, now that we have two men on the panel here, I'd
Yes.
love for you guys to.
I absolutely endorse the fact that it is. I have no uterus. None whatsoever. Checked a couple of times.
Oh boy.
It's really, it is very simply a sole person's right, no matter how they identify, how they wish to be called, what they wish to be called, whom they wish to be called. It is their right to medical health.
Mm.
That's it.
Mm.
And that medical health could be mental health,
Mhm.
could be physical health, could be emotional health, could be financial health. It is their medical health. Period. I can go get a vasectomy. I can go get a little blue pill. Okay. I can go get, and we can just list out all the stuff because I'm a white guy.
Mm.
That's it. I can go get whatever I want. No problem.
Right.
No questions asked. No wife has to sign off on that. Nobody's going to ask me if I'm leaving the state or the country to go do something.
I think the then Senator Kamala Harris actually said something to that effect during, I can't remember his name, Judge Garland's confirmation hearing.
Oh,
She asked
yeah.
point blank, what are any
Yes.
of the laws that govern a man's body?
Yep.
None.
She did.
Nada.
Nothing.
Yep.
Darren, what's your take?
Well, as always, I have a higher view on it, and I'll just say this. I mean, I'm pro-choice because I believe that only God can judge you. You know, that's number one. Number two, I think a lot of what's going on is rooted in the ultimate hypocrisy that we're managing through in society. My point being, okay, we're talking about America being so much of a land of opportunity and freedom, but when you look at the draconian aspects of the abortion ban, tying in people to tell on somebody,
Yeah.
or putting them in the civil litigation, or putting them in jail because someone's making a choice for them, just doesn't fly from a logical standpoint. But let me give the audience some history. In 1973, that was the decision, the landmark decision of Roe versus Wade. The conservative movement for 49 years had eyes on reversing it. And I just want people to know that with the changes in the political environment, we're all people of voting blocks. You know, I belong to a minority voting group. Some of you belong to women voting groups. People belong to a Latino voting group. But the fundamental Christian voting group is how they made the deal to get Republican support. So part of that was a promise. So for the candidate in 2016 to get that evangelical support, this is just an opinion now, they basically had to sell their souls to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to let a failed businessman with credible sexual assault accusations and a philanderer be my guide above Jesus. And that was the agreement. When you get in that position of power, you will overturn Roe versus Wade. That's what he said. Now, what's interesting when we look at the political implications of that, the 3 Supreme Justice openings that occurred during his term, those people sat there in the job interview and said, it's president, I will not change it. But look at what's going on. And see, those are the things that we need to be cognizant of. And it comes down to right and wrong. I go back and reinforce my point. What's done is done. We're a result of voter apathy, victims of the culture war that those of us that are even in the fight don't necessarily make sure that we stop and inform. There's too much ignorance and disinformation that is propagating bad decisions. So I have a solution. I'm of the opinion this is a great issue, but we have to ask ourselves after we have any type of political issue or quagmire, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
And what are we going to do about it has to be
What's
that
next?
mobilization of like-minded people to vote. Thank you.
What's next?
And you make a fair point, and this goes back to the discussion we had about, we even talked about marches and,
What's next?
rallies and all this stuff that we're doing. And my husband and I, actually, Darren and I, had attended a march back when this first came up, and we were in Allentown. And I remember there was a very small population of people out there, and everybody rallied, right? Everybody was rallying together. Yes, stop it. And here we are, we're talking about it again. So it's not just about consideration of rallies and getting out there and talking to people, because I feel that people already have their mind made up. Going out there and rallying, marching, whatever is great, but people have their mind made up. That's not going to make the difference. That's not going to change anything. It comes back to who are we putting in positions of power that have the resources, behind them. Let's call it for what it is. The resources behind it, and I'm talking money, that is allowing these things to take place and to allow these bills to pass through. And it goes back to just making sure that we know how we're voting, why, what are we voting for, who we're voting for, and know these people and educate ourselves. We don't educate ourselves enough. I don't know if it's just people just, I don't know if it's laziness. I don't know if it's just apathy. I don't know what it is, but it's like we are not educating ourselves enough to make the impact that we need to make.
Totally agree. And we've had this conversation before, because when she wanted me to do this show, I said, "Stuff, really?" I was like, I'm numb to it. We had a conversation about it before. Yep. This is our second time on the sistership talking about it. And I'm like, what's next?
Yeah.
So I was
what's
like,
going to change?
Do I really need to do the show again? Do we really? Because we keep talking, we say the same thing. We're out there. We're doing what we know we need to do, right? But is it really making an impact for people to do what they need to do to make a difference? Because to me, I say I'm numb to it because I feel like we're going nowhere.
Right.
We're talking.
We're stagnated.
And
Yeah,
we're talking and we rallying. We got shirts. We got, and I said stuff. Hey, what's next? Because this right here, this ain't it.
I think it's a combination of both what you've brought up before, which is the small in-home, in-family, and friend conversations. But it's also people don't interact with their legislators outside of the voting here.
Yeah.
Not a week goes by that I'm not calling some legislator on some kind of an issue. And I think it's a practice that we need to get back into of holding the people who we put into power accountable. If there is a vote coming on a topic that you feel very strongly about, call your legislator. You're probably not going to get them. I'll just let you know right now, especially if
you'll get a voicemail.
You'll get a voicemail, you get a clerk. Okay?
It's okay.
However, whether it's a voicemail or a fax, every single one of those is registered for the day on the topic, on the bill, and what that individual, what that constituent would like their person. But they are our public servants. And I think we've forgotten that. We put them up on this high pedestal, and that's where we get career politicians who could give a you-know-what, whether their constituents like what they do or not.
And they assume, we assume that they know what our thoughts are, what and that's the thing. Like, I can sit here and we could have a totally different opinion on some, but if we don't talk about it, we don't know.
Right. And so you have to get into the habit of just calling them up. An email is good, but they're not registered the same as a fax or a phone call is.
But here's the problem. A lot of us feel like that's a waste.
It can be.
And they don't do it, right?
Well,
And
you feel that it's a waste because you're not doing it.
Right. Can I add?
Because you stop. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to just jump in there, and I think we have to stay positive. Tell you why.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Getting numb is part of the plan to disenfranchise without action.
Yes.
I can tell you this: the propagation of a big lie that an election was stolen has been propagated day in on a I'll say a level we've not seen. So much so that roughly 30% of people actually believe it. That's because it's continuing. We have to, as people that are trying to be that change agent, continue going. You can't feel numb. I mean, it's a job. That's what it's designed to do. It's easier to give up than to fight. Because if our leaders and the people before us gave up, we would have the small strides that we've made.
And I agree with you there. However, when I say I'm numb to it, what I mean is you have to travel with like-minded people. We know what we're doing. We know what we need to do to change the system, right? We can keep talking. We can keep talking. Those who want to do something will do it. You just have to keep going at what you're doing. However, there comes a point where it's like, okay, I'm not going to try to convince people that they need to. If they see fit to where they need to be, they will follow or they will lead in the right direction. But a lot of us, and I hear it all the time, it doesn't make a difference. Oh, why are we going to do it?
Yeah.
What's the point? So those are the people who you get numb to after a while because you don't want to talk to that no more.
I get that. I do.
You don't want to talk to it.
I do. And I have to say, I don't necessarily make the calls to my legislators thinking that my call is going to change them.
Yeah.
I do it because I feel it's my civic duty for them to at least hear me.
Yeah.
They might not change their minds, but at least I can't control that. I can control what I can do.
Yeah.
And what I can do is make them a call and say, hey, I know that there's a vote coming up. This is my opinion on it. I'd like you to vote this way. And whether that changes things or not, I can't control.
Yeah.
But at least I can control how I feel. And I feel like, okay, I've done at least what I can.
But until we come in and we act as if it's a unity in the community and we're all on the same page, where are we going to get? So I always say, and I always talk about it, we got to change within. Because just in the African American community, we fight amongst each other. So how can we change anything when we won't even talk to each other?
That's a great point. I like that.
You know-
At the Stroudsburg rally for Roe v. Wade, just this past 2 weeks ago, I'm kind of blanking on the date. One of the conversations I heard in the crowd is, well, I'm here because the NAACP is here. I'm not going to support this because my elders in my church aren't allowing us to. And that is a
Boom.
Black community
Boom.
church, a Black
Yeah.
community issue, and a Black community
Boom.
woman who said that to me.
Boom.
And, I was taken aback, and I had
Boom.
no rebut to this other than your church shouldn't be legislating
Thank
our
you.
Constitution.
Church
And
and
then I
state.
had to walk
Church and
away
state.
from the conversation.
Yeah.
So, strong
Get it.
point is the community is small, okay? But if the infighting isn't going to get resolved, then you won't make any more strides forward.
That's exactly
So
what I'm talking about.
So I like this conversation because
That's
this leads
exactly what
me
I'm
back
talking about.
into change management 101. This is what it is. It's change management. Think about it. So, I get it. And you're right. Churches, this is the thing about this church and state. I understand some people, they're very into their religious beliefs and so on and so forth. Some antiquated to me, again, because I think so much has changed in life that you have to make a decision for yourself. No church is going to tell me how I need to manage my body. And that should be separate. That should totally be separate. And again, back to Darren's point, at the end of the day, God is going to judge you. If that's what you believe, you're going to get judged at, the time of your passing. I still feel that this whole church and state thing is such a big issue. But again, when it comes to change management, and it goes back to what you were saying, when it comes to change management, you have to focus on the individuals who are not so set in their ways that they're not going to change. You already have the support of those who already agree to this has to happen.
Yeah, on the fencers.
They're on you have to, it goes back to this on the fencers. And this even goes with voting. It goes with the on the fencers. Those are the people that if you educate them enough and give them the tools, the resources, the thought process, whatever have you, give them the facts and let them make their opinions based on that, they're going to go either one way or another. Those are the people that we have to be talking to. Because to your point, this is why everybody's so frustrated. We're knocking on wood that you can't penetrate. We got to be knocking on people's doors that we can penetrate, that we have the ability, that they're willing to listen, minimally listen, and understand points of views to be able to finally make a decision one way or another. That's where we lose sight a lot of times, is we're constantly focusing on the people who are already dead set in their ways. And we're angry and we're frustrated. We say, we can't make a change. We can't make a change. We can't make a change, but we can. We just need to focus on the right people.
Until we are walking the way we walked with Martin Luther King, until we walk the way Malcolm X walked, okay? We can forget it. We have to come together first in order to change what is happening. But the infighting within us is so bad that we can't even change that, because there's nobody who is the leader, and I'm not even going to say leader, because if you say leader, everybody wants to be the head honcho, right? And if it's not them, they don't want no parts of it, because but when you look at Malcolm X and you look at Martin Luther King and you look at some of the ones that I grew up with, David Patterson, I grew up with Congressman Rangel. We lived in the same building. I was the little girl bringing the mail and whatever, and they would pat me on my head and I would keep going. But until we follow these people, or not even following them, it's about let the person who needs to lead. Let's get back to what we normally know so that we can progress. We and we talk about it all the time. Jane has said it to me exactly what you said, spicy. She said, I didn't understand when you said that, but being around you, I see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't like to talk about it, but it exists. And it exists hugely up here. And this mountain is so small that unless we all pull it together, we could just, I say it all the time, forget it.
Well, this goes back again. I mean, as we come back to the table on this row and the decision that's, I hate to say it, it seems like it's going to be, you know, I'm manifesting not, but what can we do next is really what we need to be taught, because we have to be 10 times ahead. Then, because we're already like behind the times, right? If we're still talking about we got to be 10 times ahead. So those are the conversations, back to what you were saying, is calling your legislature, your local, you know,
run for office,
or get in people's ears, you know, and let's try to change. I don't know what the vote's going to be and what exactly is going to be involved in this.
What are the counter arguments then? The takeaway today, as we exit this program today, what are the takeaways? What are the counter arguments? Because, you know, when I do sit down with someone at the coffee shop and they say to me, well, you know, my church elder or my identity is, or my, you know, says that I should respect all life. Okay, what do we do? How do we counter those arguments? How do we counter the apathy? How do we counter? So again, if you want to have something positive come out of this today, okay, what are the 5 key things that we can walk out this door and do tomorrow?
Number 1, we got to pull together. We have to get tighter. I think that's why we all started the event on August 27th, and we said, let's hit the refresh button to pulling together as a unity in the community.
Okay.
I think that's one thing that we can do. I'm watching
Get on the phone.
Juneteenth come.
Yep.
But as I watch Juneteenth come, I see 3 different groups having 3 different events. And the reason, because one might not get along with the other one, and this one don't get along with that one, so everybody's separated, make their order. There's one in Mount Pocono, there's NCW. Everybody is separate. There could be one Juneteenth, which let's give it the respect that is needed, because I think it's Kwanzaa Mama, and the African American
network,
right? Been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
So how come we can't pull together to that one event with everybody coming into the fold and said, okay, we need to do this now? I think if we did that, that would make a huge difference in what we do in the Poconos. If we can even probably show or make a difference at, look, they're doing things a little bit different now.
You know what? You
Can I
actually, that point you made just now. Yesterday, I was watching a program, and I don't know, I can't remember who it was that said it. That said, look, we are in a time now that we have to all. It doesn't matter who you are, Black, white, Latin, whatever, people of color. We have to come together together. This whole separation that's happening, it's still divided. I get there's things that need to be addressed within your culture, your race, whatever have you. And that's in all races, let's be clear. But we have to join forces together to say we stand united in anything that we're trying to progress forward on. We stand united for this. You know, going back to Roe, it's calling your legislators. Let them know these bills that they have out there. We need to be talking about this. And to your point, it may not change something, but it's at least getting people's ear to say, if we have enough people calling and having this discussion, or saying, this is my opinion and this is what I want you to vote on and how I want you to vote. If there's enough people out there doing that, it could potentially change.
Absolutely.
It could potentially change. That's one of the things of the 5
we have to
that
try.
we need to be doing. We have to
try.
You have to at least try. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And you have to, at this point, we have to make a stand. And I love what you brought up about the secularity of what's happening here. I think, and I don't know where it started, I don't know how it started, but I think we've lost the ability to think beyond our own
personal,
situation
and I'm guilty
and
of it,
thinking globally, right?
of
think we're
not
all-
trusting or being.
Whether you
Well,
you don't have to
whatever.
100% agree with this person, but if
Mhm.
it's for the greater good and if it can affect
Mhm.
good change, good trouble,
Correct.
Good trouble.
good trouble, then get behind it.
Mhm.
Support it. You don't need to make your own things like, I'm not 100% on yours. I'm going to
So
go on
I'm
this
not gonna
wagon. No, because then
That's
there's
what
two
we do.
smaller wagons instead of one bigger wagon that can really make the
And
charge.
we're pulling from each other's resources
Yeah.
instead of that huge.
Yes.
That will make that will make a difference
Mhm.
if we could just do that.
Come
Right.
together.
Mhm.
Darren, you said you were saying something. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to make a point, and I wanted to just look at it through the lens of just say, arguably, the biggest step change that we had in making change in a social movement, which was the civil rights movement. Everybody
Mhm.
didn't agree with each other.
Right.
Martin Luther King and Malcolm X had
Hello.
fundamentally different values.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
what I'm throwing out there is, what is the end game? See, my end game, personally, is just making sure that I get the freedoms that everybody else has. Nothing
Exactly.
more, nothing less.
Exactly.
I don't
Right.
want to take your job. I don't want your job. I don't want to live in your neighborhood.
Or
What
pie.
I want is that if I get pulled over by a policeman, I have the same chance of getting out of that encounter than the next person. So see,
Yep.
when it comes
Absolutely.
down to having that dichotomy of thought, we start
Correct.
by making sure we have the common good. If there are three events, the
Mhm.
message should be the same. Because if it
Hello.
resonates for the three different venues, we're
Mhm.
going to leave those areas with the same thing. So that's
Same
where we
message.
start, in my opinion.
So
So
my
I just wanted to
opinion-
reinforce that.
I agree, because my opinion was, you're gonna do a table at this event? I said, no, I'm not gonna do a table at this event. We need to pull together. We need to all pull together and hop. So I said, I'm gonna hop because I want to see the events.
Yeah.
And we have to end it back to Darren, what Darren was saying. Even with that, as long as the messaging is the same, then it's a consistent message, right?
Mhm.
Because you want
Okay.
a consistent message.
Driving home the
Mhm.
point that this is about an individual, as Darren just said, the individual's right to be capable of having equal rights.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, so now the where I'm standing and hearing that there's a division
Mhm.
within the color community, okay, some of it's religious, some
Right.
of it's old school,
Yeah.
some of it's, you can label it any way you need to label it. Okay, so how do you educate those three groups
Mhm.
of, I'll respect your religious
Right.
identity.
Mhm.
Right.
However, as a political community, we need to be united, period. So
Right.
Yes.
how do you educate those people? How do you bring them not into the fold, because that sounds encompassing and kind of scary, but how do you get them to understand we're going to respect the fact that you
Right.
don't want your daughters to have
Right.
abortions?
Mhm.
Great.
Mhm.
Okay, but your daughters are going to be able to have have medical freedoms
Mhm.
Mhm.
that will allow them to potentially not need to have abortions.
Mm.
Okay, the idea that there's respect on that level that those subgroups aren't seeing.
Mhm.
They're
Right.
capable of seeing. Obviously, they're capable of seeing because it happened in the '60s. Okay,
Mhm.
the Muslims, the Christians, all of those brotherhoods came together. And I'm
Mhm.
sorry, it was brotherhoods at the time.
Mhm.
Came together and formed up and peacefully marched, took
Mhm.
their lumps. So this way, today we could be sitting at this table.
Mhm.
So
We need to go
right.
back to that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We do.
We
But
need to go back to
how?
that.
So I think
But-
to the point that I think you're trying to get at is having these one-on-ones or multiples on ones
Mhm.
conversations. And I think the one topic I'll bring up is regarding about religion. And this country was legitimately formed on the basis of freedom of religion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's boom, that's history, it's fact. But not just one religion. They didn't state just Christianity,
Right.
Mhm.
just Judaism.
Right.
Just religion. So whatever you believe, you have the freedom to do it. But
Right
your
versus
freedoms
wrong.
cannot impede other people's freedoms.
Right versus.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's like page 1, I think, of a really important document, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness.
Mhm.
As long as you are not hurting another living person,
Right.
that's fine. And the discussions of when life begins The Christian church will say it begins at conception.
Right.
I respectfully disagree
Mm.
as a woman, as a Catholic woman.
Mm.
And even in the Bible, I think I shared with you,
Mhm.
and I can't remember, I think Genesis, life began at the first breath.
Yes.
Mhm.
So if there is a baby, if there's a fetus forming inside me and they are not viable outside of me, how are they a person?
Mm.
It's not a personhood yet.
Yeah.
So if you make it a personhood, there's going to be further implications onto that. Okay, so if someone
Agreed.
is there's a break-in and the person is murdered, that person was pregnant, now it is a double homicide.
Yes.
Now that person has to pay taxes if that person is a personhood. Now that person is a social security number. Now they get social security, that person is a personhood. It is a huge trickle-down effect that I don't think the United States is really fundamentally prepared for. And going back to the religion, Nancy Pelosi, I think Bob Casey as well, two Catholics who support a woman's right to choose.
Mhm.
And the Catholic Congress of Bishops has said they are not allowed to receive communion.
Yep.
I would
that.
like to go to these Catholic Congress of Bishops and ask them, how many people do you think are going in the communion line right now who've had abortions?
Exactly.
And that's
Exactly.
why we don't have a lot of people that participate in the church anymore because of
Well,
stuff like that.
Right.
That's-
I mean, I participate in my church, and this is a personal level. This is not women's
Mhm.
resources.
Yep.
Okay.
Personal opinion
Delineating
of
right here
Lauren Peterson.
is I participate. I love going to church. I'm a song leader at my church,
Mhm.
but there is a difference, and I know this for a fact, and I believe it. There is a difference between man's church and God's church. At the end of the day, when you are up against the
Agreed.
pearly gates and you're with Satan,
Agreed.
who's everyone's son, I'm really not showing my Catholic right now. My mom's gonna call me later. Oh my gosh! And say I was told by others to do thusly. That's not gonna fly.
That's it.
That's not gonna fly. You are the only judge. You and God. You are the only judges who can
Yeah.
make that choice.
Mhm.
The elders of your church, they're not going to be with you saying, "Oh yeah, we support this one." And he's like, "No, it's up to them. It's up to them. It's up to you, God, and your doctor." Done. End of story.
And that's you brought up that whole thing about privacy. To your point, how many people in the church? Let's keep it real. There's people sitting left and right. If they really follow the church, none of them would be going to church. Let's keep it real.
What happened to ye who does not have sin cast the first
Stone.
stone?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right. If you are you have to be squeaky clean, and let's just say there was only two of those people, it was Mary and Jesus, whatever you believe. Okay, you can't. We all have sinned. We all have wronged,
I
and
agree.
you can't judge. You cannot judge another person. You cannot, because look here first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look here first before doing that.
And again, going back to kind of turn this back into the whole thing about pro-life and all the other things that come into play when you're talking about forcing women to have children that, again, decide, they didn't want to, and, abortion laws came into play, or non-abortion. There's this whole thing about this living. You've got Planned Parenthood. Whatever happened to Planned Parenthood? There's some of Planned Parenthood
It's gone from here.
gone,
Yeah,
right?
it's
So
gone.
services for those who are also pregnant. Again, health services for women. I mean, there's so much that, what are we bringing all these back? Are we allowing them? Now we're talking about trying to take care of them, and, those who cannot, how about the mother who has a 12-year-old daughter who has now her period and can conceive, and she's sitting there pregnant? Are you as a mother going to say you're going to have that child?
The scary part is there's people out there who do.
That
Right. Hey.
scares the hell out of me. Go ahead, Darren. I'm sorry.
No, another aspect I wanted to bring as far as just the abortion rights is something that we didn't cover. America is still anti-woman, and I can give you
Absolutely.
I
Even
can
village
give
women.
you a great example. And we have to look at it through the lens of just possibility, because everybody's lying. Right now, in 2016, on paper, from experience, Hillary Clinton was the most qualified person to have that job. But I will tell you that because I look at all media venues, certain media companies had already put it out there. They had already discounted and minimized her.
Yeah.
So her relative contribution wasn't even set up. And people made that decision. When they got in the voting booth, they didn't feel comfortable. A woman makes 73 cents for every dollar that a man makes. But women have made significant strides in the corporate arena. Could it be going back to the old ways of thinking? Because if women have to have children and daycare costs are prohibited, that's more likely to keep them home in the house. That changes the fundamental landscape of the job market. So see, there's a lot of things going on, and because we can't get to the truth, we have to look at all of the possibilities and understand why we need to fight.
Right.
I just wanted to share that.
That was great.
That was a great
And so
point.
something you said early on in our discussion about we have amendments about us.
Absolutely. Yep.
There is the Equal Rights Amendment, the ERA, that was started decades ago. My mother marched in it. I have her sash. It is still not passed. There is still no guarantee for equal protections under the law on the basis of sex. That's something that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
They think, oh, we're women. It's past now.
No.
No, it's definitely not.
And that's where, while abortion is the flag
Right.
that's being waved, it is not about abortion.
Nope.
It's about absolute, overwhelming equal rights in this country.
Yes.
We are not the land of the free.
No.
We're barely the land of the brave. I mean, look at this jackass up in Buffalo. So the reality is, though, if you within your community are divided and everybody's standing behind a patriarch, and it's mostly the patriarchs who's going to say, well, because we believe that life starts at X, we cannot support this. Okay, you got to call bullshit.
Yeah.
You really do. You got to stand up to that person. You got to say, you have a pulpit. You have an opportunity to change things. You are a leader. Okay, so some of those calls aren't necessarily to your legislature.
True.
Some of those calls
That's
are to
true.
Pastor Dan and
It's a good point.
Father whatever.
Very good point.
I know a lot of them, if you challenge them, will get upset.
Yes.
Oh, of course.
Okay, so
We got to make them feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
As
Because if
Trouble
you
said,
don't get uncomfortable,
uncomfortable.
there won't be change.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Got to
Okay?
let them feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
It's called growing pains for a reason. You have to.
Absolutely.
It's painful to change,
Yeah.
but it's normal.
Mhm.
Being
Yeah.
stagnant is not normal.
Right. Right.
If I stayed in the ideology that I was growing up with, I'd be afraid of having a corporate job. I don't qualify for a corporate job. Let's just be clear there. But I would be afraid of having a corporate job because a woman of color is going to take it from me. Okay. Well, I mean, just bullshit on so many levels there because I don't qualify. B, no, that's just not what's going on. It is, we need to create this world that the forefathers, the grand experiment, okay, and it was just an experiment, it was just an idea on paper, okay, we're really thinking of. Yeah, they owned slaves. Yes, they were not the great people that we make them out to be in history on the books, okay, but they started something, and we can finish that process, okay, as long as we pick up the positive threads that they laid down. And we get out from under the patriarchy. We cause that discomfort.
Yeah.
Because that's what they did. They started by making first England uncomfortable, and then later on, when France and Spain were getting reactionary, they made them uncomfortable. Okay, how do we create that discomfort locally? And it's by making those phone calls, by standing up to the pulpit, by having everybody walk out of church one Sunday. Guess what? Boy, I bet you Pastor Dan's attitude's going to change.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
When they pass that basket and it comes back with $1.50.
Mhm. I agree there.
Yeah.
Think,
It's
act locally, think global.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's actually.
Well,
Go ahead, Darren.
No, I was going to say, well, I'm a student of history, but I'm also a pragmatist. And while I want to make sure that we remain positive, I can tell you that I think that we've gotten to a point of inflection where if we don't figure it out and break those barriers, we're going to be in for a very tough road, because it starts with abortion rights.
Yes.
Because you're right, that's the cornerstone of privacy. Then it comes down to gay rights. Then it comes down to interracial marriage. Then it comes down to any of these other minute draconian things. Because we have the airwaves and I cherish them, I'm going to give people an assignment. Read The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William Shire. It's a very long book, but if you think this is something that's never happened before, you're mistaken. Because the same type of things, creating a scapegoat, continuing to propagate falsehood, and making sure that the shifting demographics stay in the same actual positions of power, that was all done before. And it had horrible results at the end. And if we are students of history, if we don't look and course to change it, we're destined to repeat it.
You made such a great point. And actually, I was speaking with somebody a couple weeks ago that's, elder, and said, if you don't see what's going on, I'm going to tell you, this has all been done before.
Absolutely.
Not the same exact things, but this has all been done before. This is history repeating
it's still
itself.
a power play of that white minority that is in charge.
Yep.
And the male minority that's in charge. Just to kind of play with what Darren just said, when Hitler was rising to power and he was taking Jewish rights away, if you were a past soldier that had served in the German army, you had more rights than other Jews. And they helped. And then suddenly their rights were taken away, and they stood around saying, "What the hell?"
Well, yeah.
It's a starting point.
Correct.
Like I keep saying, it's a slippery slope. Roe v. Wade has been around for 49 years, and it has been precedent, and other case law has been based off of it. If it is dismantled, it is a domino effect.
Yeah, and that, back to Darren's point, think about what's happening in Florida. You can't say the word gay. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, but there's a lot of ridiculous things I've heard. But, with that said, to his point, this is just the beginning. If people think that this is just the ultimate sacrifice, what they don't realize is this sacrifice is now going to have an effect on everything else that's been put into place.
It's like those dystopian movies and novels everybody reads.
Right.
Hunger Games, like those things.
Right.
I think people can need to understand is that is a very real probability, not possibility. I think it's a probability.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think the other thing too, just to build on that, for years the conservative movement has championed this, and now that we know that they're going to win, there's almost radio silence. That in itself tells me that there's something going on, because basically, typically the world we live in today, when there's a win, everybody's got to take a victory lap, but it's very quiet. And I suspect that's because at the end of the day, they know that that's not the will of the majority. And this is that inflection point that I've referenced again from a democracy standpoint. So it's up to us, like I said, to get out there and make sure that we vote.
No, I agree. So I think there's a couple things, right? And we could definitely be talking this for quite a while. But as we kind of roll back to our initial discussion in regards to what transpired with Buffalo, and really coming together as a unified group of people, humans, right? Talking about rights of others, ourselves and others. We have to really, do the right thing for everybody and stop. And, I said something this morning about we need to stop thinking about just me, because we live in a country that is full of many different people, that any decisions we make that go into effect or law affects everybody else. So we can't just be thinking about just ourselves. We have to really be considering everybody else. Unification, and when we talk about unity in the community, it is about everybody. It isn't just about, political parties or church versus state or, whatever. It's about race or culture, what have you. It's everybody coming together.
How do we walk together? And go back to what the civil rights movement did and everything that was done at that point in time. Continue to fight and continue to talk and continue to make phone calls and stop being so apathetic, because that's exactly what they want.
Yes.
They want people to stop. So march and then stop. It's like this valley, we start and then we just come down. We start and then we come down.
And we have to get to a point where we're constantly moving on that hill until some change happens. Because the more we do that, the more change is going to take place. And, we have to get to a point where we can't be numb anymore. If we continue to be numb, that's exactly what they want. It's exactly what they want.
Yeah.
So I'm just, thank you so much for all this dialogue and conversation. I'm sure we can continue to keep. Are there any other thoughts that you have? I mean, we could definitely keep it moving.
We can't just have this dialogue.
No, you're right.
We can't just have this dialogue.
Right.
And I don't know how many people came in, I don't know how many people responded. If 80% of those people did something, phone call to the legislature, reach out to their local church. Okay, if you're involved in a community organization, how can you make that change tomorrow? Tomorrow morning, Monday, 9:30 a.m. What have you done?
That goes back to your point of the five. What
Yep.
five
What are the
things
five
can
things?
we do
Exactly.
to move us forward? I think we did 2,
Yeah, exactly.
because we can't just keep talking. We
No,
did
you're
3.
right. You're right. No, I mean, I wasn't keeping count.
We did 2.
But I think there's more than 5.
Oh,
But,
there's so many things you can
there's
do.
so many things you can
But
do.
and to that point is also talking in your circles. I mean, your friend groups, your family groups, your church groups. Work together to change minds. Talk about the tough topics.
Yeah.
If it makes you uncomfortable, then you need to be talking about it.
Yeah.
It's not to be, oh, it's not me, I don't want to. No, you have to talk about it. And I say, let's learn, because that's how we grow and that's how we change and that's how we make ourselves better. I think another thing that you can take away from this when you're having those conversations is about that slippery slope that we've talked about. This is not just about pro-abortion,
Right.
pro-life, pro-choice.
Mhm.
This is about privacy and the right for any person, man, woman, gender nonconforming, LGBTQ+, to make decisions regarding their body and their bodily autonomy and their health, physical or mental, with them and their doctor, and if they're religious, God. That's it.
Right.
That's it. There's just 2
Totally.
to 3 individuals involved.
Yeah.
One isn't corporeal.
Thank you. I love her. I love it. Darren, your last thoughts or
I think we all have a plan of action. My personal plan of action is to talk to the youth and make sure that I get the unregistered voters engaged. See, we can have this conversation because we know the deal. We're actually trying to be change agent. But if it stays in this ecosystem, it doesn't create change. You got to go to places where people feel disenfranchised and have the message. Right now, I'd argue from a political perspective, one of the major parties, they have a problem with messaging, where the other one, they don't care. They just have a means to an end and they just throw it. So we have, as people that are part of that solution and tactical, quote unquote, soldiers, we've got to tell that young man or that young woman, do you understand what's going on? See, my parents participated in the civil rights movement and saw segregation. They didn't tell me a bad story to make any group of people feel bad. They told me the facts, but more importantly, what needed to be done to change that. That's what we have to do, in my humble opinion. And we'll do it. And here's the consolation, if there's any. If we do nothing, it will get worse. But the people that think they're beneficiaries of the current agenda, they're never the beneficiaries once it gets worse. And that's what we need to tell everybody. So I enjoyed being on the panel. I mean, I love you guys because you're keeping up the fight in a good way. And that's all we have to do. People that believe lies have already given up. They just haven't figured out the implications of that decision.
Yeah. Thank you, Darren. Tiffany Coe, my girl.
I think we hit it all. Staying out of your comfort zone, which
Not being numb.
right. Well, I don't know.
I know it's difficult. It's difficult.
And I think I just to
When I say, I'm sorry, when I say numb, like I said, we're always going to
I
keep
know,
going.
I know.
Right.
You know, there's times where I'm like, forget it,
yeah,
you know.
right.
But we still keep moving forward
Right.
to do what we have to do and what's necessary. But sometimes you get to that point where you're like, God, is this gonna really work?
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And to that point, I just wanted to bring that up, and I think I mentioned this earlier, is that feeling of apathy, that feeling of numbness, especially, and again, this is an outside perspective, but so you can
Mhm.
stop me if you're wrong.
Mhm.
If I'm wrong, is that persons of color, they've been down this road so many
Yeah,
times.
That's
absolutely.
what it
It's a
is.
self-preservation
Absolutely.
thing.
Mhm.
It's a psychological way of your
Give me
emotions
5 things to
protecting
change it.
myself.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yes.
Give me 5
It's
things
normal.
to change it because I don't want to keep repeating. We talking, we rally, we do, and then we drop off.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We gotta even slow
Start
and
small
keep pushing.
and then grow.
Mhm.
Talking in your small groups, talking to religious figures, talking to your legislators, getting out there and engaging the youth, because I think that's the biggest thing.
Yes.
Is that, and Darren hit that nail on the head, and it's the youth. So we already, as adults, kind of know what is going on, to Darren's point, and know what we need to do, but understand the implications of our next generation as well.
Mhm.
And we need to be talking to the youth so they understand not just what's going on now, but historically what's happened,
Right.
and engaging them in a more diverse, equitable environment, inclusive environment, because we talk about DEI, and people hate, they try to say that CRT, it's not CRT. Again, once again, had this situation in Buffalo, had we really talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Mhm.
this person may have had a different thought process.
Absolutely.
We need to be talking about that. We need to be engaging our youth. This goes to the school systems, the colleges, wherever you're at in your environment, in your communities. We have to be very focused on diversity,
Agreed.
equity, and inclusion.
And for me, until we internally, Black folks, fix us internally, we are going to stay the same. We need to change a little bit to move forward.
Right.
Man, there is no great replacement theory. Let's just call it for what it is, okay? It's just someone's ideology that's not even real. Just throwing it out there.
And it's been around for centuries.
And it's been
Oh,
around
yes.
for centuries, So
Okay.
with
We're
that,
just making more pie.
we're just making more.
We're making more pie. There's not less pie for you. We're making more pie.
And as
Yeah,
far as
really.
Roe is concerned, if this actually goes into, the Supreme Court rules on it, and it becomes the rule of the land, we got to be careful as we talk about our different states and what they're implementing as far as bills are concerned. I will say from a preventative measures perspective, because if this does take place, we have to start talking about how do we prevent certain things to happen where we are not put in that position, where now there's people doing illegal abortions, or, God forbid, messing up their reproductive systems and
You're never going to ban abortions.
barren. It's not.
You're just banning safe abortions.
It's safe
Right.
abortions,
Correct.
exactly. So parents, talk to your children. Sex education is absolutely
Real
necessary.
Sex education.
Real sex education. We used to do it in school. They used to talk about, I don't know if they do it now,
I
but
think that's why everybody likes the house, because Mama C just real with it. Real and
we
raw.
love Mama C.
Just embarrassing me. I'm like, no, really?
But it's real. It is a real conversation that parents need to have with their children.
Yes.
We want to try to mitigate any potential issues where, someone, ends up having to, ends up pregnant and has to be put in a bad situation to make it worse. So with that said, please speak to your children. Let's make sure that our school systems, they're focusing on sex education and DEI. And,
It has to start at home.
and it starts at home.
The
Starts
village.
at home.
We keep talking about it.
The village.
It has to start
Yep.
at home.
Absolutely.
So with that said, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. This is your girl, Steph Bayer from the Sistership Network, where we are here every Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time
Till 3:30.
till 3:30. We went a little over today, but it was well worth the discussion, and I'm sure we could have stayed on forever. And thank you to the Brothership team here as well. They air first Sunday on YouTube, Sistership Network on YouTube, first Sunday of the month. Check them out. And thank you again, Chris. Thank you, Lauren, as always. our girl Tiffany Copeling, TP Darren Johnson, aka
Thank
DG
you.
Jersey. Thank you all for joining us. Love y'all. Stay safe.
All right.
Peace.
All right.
We got this song. Come on, let's talk about.
Man.
Let's talk about.
We could have kept going on this because